Hello?
Hi, Bill.
Yes.
Hi, it's Alex Lifeson calling.
Alex, what's going on, man?
How are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm great. Especially, especially now. I've been pressing for this interview for weeks now. I've been playing guitar since '78, man. You've always been my main man, so this is really a pleasure.
That's great. Thanks a lot.
Cool. How's everything going?
Everything's going fantastic.
Yeah. So when's the tour start?
It starts in 8 days.
Yeah. So when are you gonna be in New York? I don't have the itinerary. Are you coming to the Garden, the Coliseum? Do you know?
Actually, we're doing the garden, and then I think we're coming back and doing Meadowlands and Nassau in the new year.
Uh huh.
So the garden's, I think December 2nd, I think.
Uh huh.
Early December.
Cool, cool. Well, I look forward to it. Yeah, I have a friend who I've seen used like I think 9 times, and my friend has seen you 22 times.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. He was really excited that we were getting together. But anyway, we'll get started here. How is what's the I hate to get into this right away, but what's the future hold for Rush? Do you guys know, or does it depend on the success of the album and the tour? I mean, how much longer do you guys want to keep on, continuing? You're continuing to put out good music, but um, the last tour when you came around, rumors going around that this was your last tour. What's the state of Rush right now?
Well, after we did the Hold Your Fire tour, everybody was very burned out.
Mm-hmm.
It was quite a difficult tour. It was very long. Um, there was a lot of sickness. Getty had problems with his throat throughout the whole tour. It was very stressful. When we finished the European leg of the tour, we came home and we had about 5 or 6 days off. We went right into the studio to mix a show of hands. And when we finished mixing that, and we couldn't even talk about touring again, we decided to take about 7 months off. And when we did that, everybody got a chance to really separate themselves from the band and everything that the band stood for, and get on with some other things that maybe we never got a chance to do, or nothing, but just not to think about the band anymore.
Mm-hmm.
When we went in to write Presto, everybody was really fired up. We still didn't talk about touring until one of the last days in the studio mixing. We went up for dinner, and the three of us sort of broached the subject and decided that it was time to really make some decisions about that. Went ahead and we committed to doing the Presto tour, but it was done very carefully. The pacing was really good. We had some time off, and we didn't do a really long tour. And we came off that tour feeling like we could have stayed out longer, which was just the right time to stop.
Mm-hmm.
That way, everybody felt like they wanted to come back into it.
Mm-hmm.
We've been gearing up, and this record, I don't know, something happened. We got a newfound enthusiasm and an excitement about what we do, and about touring and recording and everything. And, I mean, we're looking at a very long distance future now.
Wow, that's great. I'm
Well, yeah.
sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you?
No, I was just saying that I think we'll be around for a long while yet. This is not going to be our last tour, that's for
That
sure.
that's great to hear. Yeah, the another rumor was that Neil's hands were hurting him or something like that. Did you hear that at all?
His hands are always hurting.
Okay. How did the direction or the pre-production differ with this release than its previous releases? You seem to like have gone away from kind of the computer tech that you were getting involved with the last few releases.
Mm. We we're learning to be a lot more efficient in our pre-production stages.
Mm-hmm.
We wrote all the material fairly quickly, and it gave Neil a chance to really work on his drum parts. Once everything was written, we bounced it up to 24 track, and then Neil would just work on drums in the evenings. We had about 2 weeks left after we'd written everything. That gave us the opportunity to start experimenting with different parts.
Mm-hmm.
Other than playing to a click track, when you're playing to a drummer, it's quite different.
Mm-hmm.
So Getty started working on his bass parts, and I was working on guitar parts. Consequently, when we went into the studio to record, everybody was really well prepared, and the recording time was very, very quick,
Mm-hmm.
very short. The drums were done in a day and a half for all the songs. Bass took another couple of days. The guitarist took, I think, 8 days to do all the guitars, which is really unbelievable. Normally we plan on about 3 weeks. So there's overdubbing and then there's solos and you're fooling around with sounds and stuff. So in the space of 3 weeks, actually space of 2 weeks because we lost a week to technical difficulties doing our bed tracks, we did all the recording. It moved everything up. We finished this record 2 months ahead of schedule.
Wow.
Which for us is unbelievable. if we're like 2 hours ahead of schedule, we're pretty happy. Never expecting to be 2 months. Originally, the tour was planned to go out in January, and we've just moved everything up.
Gotcha. You're like one of the only guitarists I could think of that has like a trademark sound, but two of them. Like at the point I think like around exit stage left, your sound started to change. Like before that, like Fly By Night 2112, you had that trademark Gibson, like that clean bite, that up front sound, and then when the solos came or when it applied, you had the wetness with the echo. But then when it came to like Race Under Pressure, you started to seem like you started to be more experimental, like loading your signal with some multiple effects and using the bar a little more. Was this a time when you progressed as a guitarist, or can you relate to what I'm
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty accurate. I think it was more of a tonal change.
Yeah.
Grace Under Pressure. I went for a more chorusy sound, more active echo repeats. Those things were all brought up front a little more. Then around the time of Power Windows, I guess, I made a switch to a different guitar, and again it was another tonal switch. Yeah, using the chorus as effects. I've always used effects. I always feel very comfortable with effects. With this record, it's maybe a little bit more straightforward than it has been in the last few records.
Yeah.
But I'd made a guitar change during Power Windows, and I went for a very, very clean sound, almost acoustic-y kind of sound.
Yeah. That was like what, a MIDI system or something?
No, it was just single coil active pickups on this particular guitar.
Okay.
That gave it a very bright clarity that I'd never heard before.
Okay, I know what you're talking about now. Okay.
Yeah, and I really like to use that as a contrast to a darker, heavier sound. But with this record, I think I've maybe gone more to a more straight-ahead power sound.
Yeah, your solo sound on the song "Roll the Bones" differs than anything I've really heard from you before.
Yeah, well, that was done on the 8-track during writing stages.
Really?
Just lifted that. That one, the solo in Bravado and the solo in all the soloing in Ghost of a Chance.
What about the rap part in that song? Who was keen on doing that?
Oh, we all were.
Yeah?
Yeah. We thought, what the hell, let's do it. Not. I mean, that song is made up of a bunch of different feels. It starts off as a very straight-ahead kind of hard feel, and it breaks into a funkier feel in the bridges, and then acoustic in the choruses. Why not throw sort of a rappy kind of thing? It's not really.
Yeah, no, it's not really rap, but
it certainly has its character. But I mean, that's been a part of our whole mentality all these years, is to move ahead and progress and try different things and have fun with stuff. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, well, we won't do it a second time.
I believe you also do many of your solos by doing various spontaneous cuts and sometimes like fading or flying them in with one another, almost like editing. Is that true?
Relations, yeah.
What is it?
Yeah, compiling. I'll do 4 or 5 solos and then we'll piece things together.
Yeah.
But with this record, we took a different approach with that. I mean, 3 solos were done. And I think they're the 3 best solos on the record. The ones that were done on one take on an 8-track when we were writing.
Which ones were they, Alex?
Those 3, Bravado, Roll the Bones, and Ghost of a Chance.
Okay.
Now the great thing about that is when we were writing, we leave a space for a guitar solo. And we continue writing, we work on vocals and stuff like that. Then when we take a break, Ed goes and grabs a coffee or something. I'll just throw a solo down just to have something so we don't have dead space for that period.
Mm-hmm.
And those three solos were all done like that. They were just thrown on one take, and they really stuck with us. And I thought, this is really bare thing. This is at the not thinking about anything, just throwing it down. This is total spontaneity, and that really appealed to me. I don't want to get bogged down on doing a million takes of a solo, just to be flashy or to do something someone hasn't done before, which is impossible these days with guitar.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably where I'm a little bit stronger in being spontaneous with it rather than working it to death.
Okay. Do you ever fall into a trap with the technology that's available today, relying on devices or effects too much?
Well, I haven't really made major effects changes in years. I still have the same.
What's your setup, Alex?
I've got two 2290s TC Electronics, 90 DDLs. I've got a depth 5 for reverb. I have a Digitech 33 IPS for pitch change, and a Digitech DSP 256 for assorted effects. And then I use Galen Kruger 100 MPL preamps, which are fairly new, and they're just great. They're a MIDI programmable preamp, so you can scroll through different sounds. Very, very flexible. I use twin 12 GK cabinets, the Galen Kruger cabinets, and I power it with Crown power amps.
Wow. And what are the main Axis guitars that you're using right now?
On the last tour, I switched again to Paul Reed Smith. I had a couple of custom-made guitars, single coils, and I've gone over to their, I think it's the Artist series, the Twin Humbucker. Great guitars.
Yeah.
Just the best.
How's the double neck doing? the white Gibson.
Well, I had it out actually. Over the summer, I pulled it out because I like to fool around with the 12 string a bit, especially if I haven't played for a while. I find it gives me a bit more of a workout.
What year is that? 72?
No, it's
No?
it's 77, I think.
Yeah. Okay. The break in Ghost of a Chance is something quite pleasurable and new to Rush. Do you know what I'm talking about?
In terms of the whole song, you mean?
Yeah, well, that break in there, it's really has tremendous feeling. I can't really relate it to another Rush song.
Oh, I see. When we go into the chorus,
Yeah.
it opens up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah, I think that song's probably my favorite song on the record.
Yeah, I agree. That figures. Was Hemispheres the ultimate Rush tour? Can you think back?
I'm sorry?
Hemispheres, was that the ultimate Rush tour for you guys? I mean, I thought it was, and many of my friends who are followers of you guys think back and say Hemispheres was the best tour.
Yeah, what was that, 78, 79?
Yeah.
That was
That was great.
It was a great tour.
Yeah.
I have to think back on it.
Yeah.
It's easy to get them all mixed up.
Yeah.
I remember it was a very long tour.
We
really worked a lot. Do you remember who opened the show?
Nah, I didn't care. Nah, I mean, I just remember you had the white carpet, right? And you just started incorporating the screens, I believe, then.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Oh, right. Yeah. So that's all the earlier material we would have done then. We did all of 2112.
Yeah, that was just a great tour. What's I don't know if this is a fair question or not, but what's the ultimate Rush album for you?
That's a very difficult question to
Yeah.
answer. You always feel most excited about the most current thing that you've done.
Sure.
I'd have to feel, I feel that this record is the greatest, but I felt the same way about Presto, and I felt the same way about 2112, and all
Mhm.
of those records.
Mhm.
And once you get a little bit of distance, and when you get a chance to start writing again, um, your perspective changes a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there an album that you are somewhat uncomfortable with?
Um, yeah, Signals.
Really? Okay.
Actually, Signals and Grace Under Pressure.
Oh no! Don't say it. Really?
No, Grace Under Pressure was very difficult. We were supposed to
Yeah.
do that record with Steve Lillywhite.
Uh huh.
We were in rehearsals. We were writing the material. We were almost finished. We were talking about going to the studio in 2 weeks' time.
Mhm.
When his lawyer called, or his manager called and said, "Listen, Steven is backing out of the project. Here's our lawyer's phone number. Call him if you want to sue us."
Mhm.
So that was the end of that, and we
Mhm.
had to scramble to find someone to work with. We'd already broken away from Terry,
Mhm.
and we really wanted to work with someone else. And we didn't have much of a choice. So you give 2 weeks' notice to a producer is not very much time.
Yeah.
Peter Henderson came along, and he wasn't very busy, and he seemed like a nice guy and everything. We said, "Okay, great, let's do it." We went into the studio. In 4.5 months of working, we had one day off, and it was murder.
Mhm.
It was so hard. And Peter was not a strong enough producer to take the reins and to, suggest a direction or have any of those sorts of ideas.
Mhm.
He turned out to be more of an engineer than producer.
Yeah.
So it put a lot of pressure on us to put everything together the way we
Mhm.
thought it should be. It was a very difficult record to make. I don't dislike it.
Yeah.
I like that record a lot.
Mhm.
I think it's got some great songs on it, but I think some of those songs could have been even better.
Yeah. There's one. Well, Red Sector A for me is like. I love that. Um, the opening track. Oh God, I can't think of it.
DW, Distant Early Warning.
Distant Early Warning. What about the beginning to that, where it's somewhat distorted or whatever? Was that a tech? I mean, how did that come about? And why?
That was just a sound on a particular synth that we were using at the time, a PPG.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we just thought it was a neat sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know the beginning, but I'm trying to recall. I think there was just a point. Well, it's not really important, but there's a point when you acquired an interest in classical guitar. Maybe it was sooner than it became noticeable. Probably around Farewell to Kings, like Bruins Bane, Magical, Closer to the Heart. When did you? Was that a time where you started acquiring an interest in that?
I studied classical for about a year in 1972.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my teacher was a friend of mine that we went to school together, and he'd been playing since he was 8 years old. He was really, really good. He was in a bike accident. He got his leg smashed up, and he was in and out of hospital constantly. So the lessons fell off. It was around that time that they lowered the drinking age in the province of Ontario from 21 to 18.
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly we weren't just doing, the odd high school dance on the weekend. We all these bars open, so we moved into that area, and we started working 6 days a week rather than 1 day a week.
Mm-hmm.
And they just, the lessons just fell off. I kind of kept up with what I'd learned, and I still play it a bit, but unfortunately I didn't really dive into it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bruins Bane was a nice piece, you know.
Yeah, it was nice. And I love playing that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's something I have on the back burner. I think eventually I'll get back into it.
Yeah. What about when you're at home, like not on tour and have a peaceful moment? When you pick up an acoustic, do you play any of your older tracks, like a Tears or something, or do you just concentrate on new music when you have a guitar in hand?
I don't concentrate on anything. I just kind of play,
Mm-hmm.
which is really great. It's a very, it's a funny thing. I don't play a lot. When
Mm-hmm.
we come off the road or when we finished in the studio, I've had enough of playing for a while.
Yeah.
And I really don't pick up my guitar for quite a. I take that back. I'm home and my fingers feel so great. I want to keep that up.
Uh-huh.
So I'll play for about a week or so, and then I'll start getting into other things around the house and friends and stuff. and that's when I'll kind of put it away for a month or two.
Mhm.
Before we start rehearsals, I start practicing a month before,
Mhm.
get back into it. But those first few times that I go in, I'll play for 4 or 5 hours, and I'll just kind of shut my eyes and go off into another world.
Mhm.
And I think most guitar players uh, experience the same thing.
Mhm.
You don't have to play stuff that you have to play,
Mhm.
and then you play things that you're not even thinking about.
Mhm.
That's the most fun. And often I'll just stick a cassette on and tape it for anything that might be drawn out of it. It's always neat to go back to them a few months later and listen to some of the playing.
Mhm. Yeah. The break between Hemispheres and Permanent Waves was a bit more extended than usual for Rush at the time. Was that a transitional period for Rush, like getting a little more mainstream, kind of like Spirit of the Radio kind of took off AOR-wise for Rush more than any real previous track you had written? Um, but you didn't really sell out. I mean, you had, Natural Science on there as well. But was that a transitional period for Rush during that time?
Yeah, for sure it was.
Mm-hmm.
I think after Hemispheres, we decided that we'd taken the idea of doing a concept record or one piece on a whole side as far as we were going to take it. And generally, I think we were quite satisfied that we'd written long songs enough. Um, and I think with Permanent Waves, we made an effort to change the direction to shorter, more compact songs.
Mm-hmm.
Try to get the same elements into a 4 or 5 minute song as you would into an 8 or 9 minute song, in that you have an instrumental piece. Everybody gets a chance to cook a bit,
Mm-hmm.
but not for 3 minutes for that one section. Shrink it down to maybe 50 seconds. And we've sort of stayed on that course ever since.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't feel a desire or a need to write a 10-minute song,
Mm-hmm.
but you never know.
Yeah. I know you'll have a modest answer for this, but the the use of open bar chords, you're more or less an innovator, at least as far as progressive metal goes. You hit an open bar chord, F sharp and A, and you think of Rush. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's true.
Cool.
Came from being in a three-piece band,
Mm-hmm.
time when we didn't have keyboards. Uh, for me, I wanted to get as big a sound as I could,
Mm-hmm.
or at least as full a sound as I could. And there are all sorts of different directions you can take to create harmonic interest, and that was just the way for me. Suspending chords, it just made them broader and fuller, and gave a little more of a layer on top of Geddy and Neil's playing, because their playing is quite frantic. They're usually all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
and unless there's something that kind of fills in all those spaces, it tends to sound empty.
Yeah. Okay, this is kind of a question from your hardcore fans here. I got from some input from. Um, I know it's hard to continue the past and keep your old fans happy, but some of your most recent tours, whatever, haven't really incorporated much of the concepts from your earlier days, like, say, like the video screen and throwing out like the Cygnus X1 or By Tour and a Snow Dog, some of the videos you had in the earlier days. How can you satisfy, or what are you going to do on the upcoming tour to try to, think about the old days and quench the thirst of fans to be like reminisce about those old days, saying, "Whoa, look at that Cygnus X1," something like that.
It's a very tough one. We
Yeah.
have so many records
I know.
to choose from,
Yeah.
and really, what the bottom line is for us is we've got to play stuff that keeps us interested,
Mhm.
that we enjoy playing.
Mhm.
If we don't, then we're just putting it on, and I don't think that's fair to our audience either.
Mhm.
And it's a very unrushed thing to do.
Mhm.
We are quite selfish in that way.
Mhm.
But I think on this tour, we've brought in some older songs that we haven't played. We've gone back right to the first record. So we brought in some older trademark songs of Rush's earlier times,
Mhm.
and we've compiled them in medleys and some cases,
Yeah, yeah.
whole songs in others, and it's kind of neat. It's I think the older fans will appreciate it a lot. The people that maybe do miss pre um,
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
material.
Mm-hmm. But you've been doing that for a while, though, medleys with like Bastille Day Anthem, a number of the tracks. So you'll do that in this tour as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Great.
actually, we've got a really great medley put together.
Yeah.
It's about 20 minutes long.
Excellent. Cool, cool. How long do you think the tour the show will last this time around?
We'll be out until the end of June, and the show is probably a little over 2 hours right now.
Oh, great, great. Okay, before I get back into the touring, say in the last 5 years, have you personally, has there been any conflict within the band as far as the direction to go into, or have you, by slight chance, personally had a desire to get Rush back into being a little bit more progressive and a little more harder, somewhat similar to your earlier days?
I'd say no and no.
Yeah.
We're always together on direction.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know where we're going when we arrive at the studio to start writing, but once we start writing, it quickly forms.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a band thing. I mean, we're all a part of that.
Yeah, well, that's why you've been around for so long, you know.
And I mean, it's a subjective thing, but I think that we are progressing as we plan to progress.
Uh-huh.
For us to take a giant step backwards, do stuff that we did 10 or 15 years ago, I just can't see us doing that.
Mm-hmm. How much was...
That's not to say that we won't take a more direct approach in our music in the future.
Uh-huh.
I think with Presto and with this one even more, we've gotten back down to a more basic three-piece.
Yes.
Especially this record.
Yes, I agree.
And we use the keyboards much less than we did on Power Windows or Hold Your Fire.
Uh-huh.
They don't play as a predominant role as they did on those records.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're sort of where I think they belong as an enhancement and a coloring, and the guitar is a bit more up front.
Mm-hmm.
I could stand to hear the guitar even more up front. So, who knows? Maybe the next record will be right down to the very, very basics.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How much of an influence was Led Zeppelin on Rush when you and Geddy first started jamming?
Certainly a very big influence.
Mm-hmm.
When we first started, Cream, Hendrix, people like that were the big thing, and then
Okay.
Zeppelin came along later that year, I guess, in '68,
Mm-hmm.
and they very big influence.
Mm-hmm.
Geddy's voice changed; he started singing a lot higher.
Mm-hmm.
We did a couple of Zeppelin songs in our set.
Which ones? Can you...
What did we do? We did A Whole Lot of Love. We did a few of them. Whole Lot of Love. I can't remember that.
Oh, that's okay. Well, if you think of it, you could just...
Breaker. Yeah, Whole Lot of Love, Heartbreaker. How many more times?
Wow. That's cool. What about guitarists back then that you were really digging?
Well, Jimmy Page was probably my biggest influence back then.
Hmm.
It started off with those guys, Clapton, Page, Beck, and then it kind of, when we got into the 70s, into more progressive stuff, Steve Hackett, Steve Howe,
Mm-hmm.
and over the years it changed. Alan Holdsworth. There's so many great guitarists around now.
Yeah. How do you feel about that and some of them, like Steve Vai, Joe Satriani?
They're fantastic.
Yeah.
They're great. I mean, I don't want to play like them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they don't want to play like me, but they're brilliant guitarists. I think really Eddie Van Halen was the one that kind of turned it around.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a guitar player everybody wants to play like, and when he came along, everyone wanted to play like him,
Mm-hmm.
and it pushed the standard up higher, and that keeps going on all the time.
Mm-hmm. Would Rush have attained the success they have without Neil Peart? Again, kind of an unfair question, but
That's very difficult to answer.
yeah, yeah.
Neil is, I mean, such an integral part of the band.
Yeah.
That's where all the lyrics come from,
Mhm.
and his drumming is just unbelievable.
Mhm.
John Rutsey was never the drummer that Neil is.
Certainly, yeah.
Close. And yeah, I don't. I would doubt it very much.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we got a few more here. What do you think of some of today's bands that were obviously influenced by you, like Dream Theater, Fate's Warning, Voivod, bands that really I know personally and really worship you guys. Are you familiar with some of their music, like Dream Theater, Fate's Warning, Rush?
A little bit of Dream Theater.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think Queensryche maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Didn't you tour with Voivod a bit in Canada?
yeah, they did. They opened some shows for us.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. What about taking out, are you going to be taking out anyone in the U.S.?
Yeah, Eric Johnson's going to be out with us.
Well, that's a good choice. He's a
Hey.
tremendous guitarist.
Oh, he's my favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Love
Yeah.
his playing.
Yeah, he's really good. Hmm. Okay. What, I guess you'd know this. What is the most successful Rush track ever written?
Be commercially successful.
I guess financially or whatever, whatever means success. I think so.
Never been a band that's gotten much airplay or video play.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Tom Sawyer's probably.
Spirit of Radio, I think, really broke you radio-wise.
Yeah, it did. For
Yeah.
sure it did.
Uh-huh.
And Tom Sawyer after that.
Uh-huh.
And more recently, I don't know.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Dreamline's been doing very well.
Yes, it is, yeah. Was Chronicles a Mercury decision, and were you happy with its release?
It was completely their decision.
Mm-hmm.
That was an option that they had that they exercised.
Mm-hmm.
Put everything together. They consulted us on a couple of things, the packaging and some of the material.
Mm-hmm.
They had a list of the songs that they were going to include, and
Mm-hmm.
if we had any problems with that, they had a B list. So we sort of went through that, and we okayed their packaging. I think they did a very, very good job.
Mm-hmm.
And normally we're involved in every aspect of the packaging.
Mm-hmm.
That we weren't, but I think they did well on it.
Okay, cool. I recently read where Getty practically admitted like embarrassment over Rush's earlier material. I can't understand this. Do you think he meant his voice, or how could you explain this?
Well,
Do you feel similar or what?
you'd really have to ask him.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are things that you look back that seem so innocent that they're embarrassing.
Uh-huh.
The way you approach something, the way you thought about it, the way
Yeah.
you put it together. And, on Caress of Steel, for instance, there's a lot of stuff on that record that I listen to and I cringe. Not that I listen to it, but that I would cringe to listen to now. But at the same time, that was a very important point in the band's development.
Mm-hmm.
And without that record, we wouldn't have done 2112.
Mm-hmm.
So, it has a special place in my heart as being a very important thing, even though it is maybe a little embarrassing to listen to now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe that's what Getty meant, that it's just so, I don't know, young, immature,
Mm-hmm.
sure, but you know what I'm getting at?
Yes, I do. Well, the Necromancer was really cool, I thought.
Yeah.
You know?
You have to place yourself back in that time, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. For a musician, or if I say guitarist, I don't know if the answer would differ, but what are some of your most proudest compositions? Are they the ones that were a little bit more lengthier, like La Villa Strangiato or 2112, Natural Science? I mean, as a guitarist, a musician, something's got to stick out to you saying, I'm so proud I wrote this.
Strangiato is definitely one of those songs.
Uh-huh.
Ghost of a Chance is like that for me.
That's good, because I really like that, yeah.
Very proud of that song as just a song. Yeah, 2112,
Hmm.
definitely.
It must be a wild feeling when you can't like think of all the songs
Oh,
that
there's
you've
so
written.
many. I mean, sure, if I had all the songs here in front of me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, natural science is great. I mean, God, there's just so many. Even nowadays, the most recent material. I thought Presto, the first side, Presto was like impeccable. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
You know. Okay, we've got a few more here. Do you have? I don't know if you can have anything, but do you have any like good stories from the older days that you could share with us, like how you may have gotten signed or your first tour or something you could share with us?
Well, the signing actually was pretty exciting. Here we are, just a little bar band
Mm-hmm.
in Ontario. Um, we'd released the first record. We financed it ourselves. We
Mm-hmm.
couldn't get anyone that was interested in the band. And we did the first record ourselves and released it, and it was fairly successful locally. But a friend of ours had sent a copy down to a program director in Cleveland, and at WMMS. Her name was Donna Halper. And
That was WMNS.
WMMS,
Okay.
which I don't think is a very heavy station anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, at the time it was, and he'd sent down a copy of the first record to her. Said, you might be interested in the record. And she put it on, and they got incredible phone response from it. She in turn called a friend of hers that night and, and said, listen, we worked at Mercury Records, Cliff Bernstein, and said, listen, I got a record here and I'm getting amazing phoners on it.
Mm-hmm.
You might want to check it out. She sent a copy to him, and basically the next day we had a deal.
Hmm.
And then about 2 weeks after that, we had a tour, and we rehearsed with Neil for about a week, and then went right on the road with Uriah Heep.
That was your first tour?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, with the experience that you now have, how would you go about being a successful rock musician? Would you change anything, and how would you go about it nowadays?
It's a very different world than it was then.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, the fact that we could get onto a tour as big as Uriah Heep, because they were an enormous band back then.
Mm-hmm.
We were out of nowhere. We got on the tour, and we only did 20 minutes as an opening act on the three-act show. It's not a lot of time, but it's very important time. You played for 12 or 14,000 people
Mm-hmm.
the first time, so you can come back 2 or 3 months later and play the club, and then you can come back and play the small theater, and then you can come back and do the 3,500 seat, and then the 7,000 seat, and then do the place that you played with that opening as an opening act with that headliner. Maybe a year or two later.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't exist anymore. It's tougher to get on tours. Tours don't seem to be doing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Video has changed a lot of that. People tend to stay home and check out a video, and if they think they might be interested in a band, they might go and see it or not.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't get that exposure like you used to get back then. That chance at getting out and proving your stuff.
Yeah. What about so like today? I mean.
Hey, I can't imagine what it must be like for a new band trying to get out there and making.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to put together a video. So right away, your video has to fit into a certain category.
Mm-hmm.
You got to sell the guys in the band rather than selling the band. You got to look right. You got to have all those things that aren't that important, because the really important thing is the music itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the spirit of these musicians together as a unit.
Mm-hmm.
And that all disappears with video.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you do it, forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Record company's not going to be interested. That's the first thing they're going to want you to do.
Mm-hmm.
It saves them time and it saves them money.
Mm-hmm.
Put that money up, and then they get advertising for a month or a day, depending on how popular your video is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what about like guitarists now who might be trying to do an individual thing or whatever? I mean, if you're just starting out playing or if you're into it 5 years or whatever, what do you think is the most important thing for them to get a grip on?
Uh,
Writing, obviously, but.
I guess there are a number of smaller independent companies that are always looking for artists like that,
Mhm.
and that are a little more dedicated to the music. I guess that's one approach. All you can really do is prepare and hope that you have something that's special and different in you.
Mhm. But like practicing wise or whatever, like a scale regimen and stuff like that, or just playing along with records. I mean,
To
is that
my
what you?
taste, no, I don't play scales. I don't do anything like that. I just
Mhm.
sit down and play. Of course, I've been playing a long time, and you can obviously reach that point.
Mhm.
But when I think back, that's the way I've always played it. Any songs I wanted to learn, I got the record and I put down the record and I played to it and learned it and played it over and over and over and moved on to the next song and the next one.
Mhm.
And that's the way I learned to play. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't
Yeah.
think you have to sit down and practice scales. I mean, it gets your fingers limber and gets you going, but your music, it, it, playing comes from the heart more than the head. I think
Mhm.
if you were to balance it all out, I think your heart has just maybe a step forward
Mhm.
to your head. And I think when you um, commit yourself to practicing scales and that sort of approach, then you're playing more from your head. And not to say that it's wrong,
Mhm.
but
Well, it helps your hand out limber wise,
yeah, I
that.
think it's a lot more fun to play the other way.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen. Did you have you ever met Jimmy Page?
No, I haven't.
Oh God. Would you like to? I mean, have you ever tried or anything?
I want to meet him actually. I I loved that guy for so long. His playing and just his everything about him as a guitarist.
Yeah.
And I know someone that knows him, that met him a couple of times. And I'm not sure I want to have that dream, that image of him shattered.
Mhm.
They're trying to be diplomatic.
Yeah. Well, when you come to New York, I certainly hope there's a guest list backstage, and I could get a chance to meet you and Getty or Neil or whatever. But like I mentioned earlier, I know just about all your material. Whether what that means to you or not, I don't know. But La Villa Strangiato is one song 10 years ago, whatever it was. I'd play over and over and over. I wanted to warm up. I put that on. Subdivisions is a song that really limbered me up. The bar chords on that. If I wanted to get my blood boiling in my hands, I'd play that and I'd be warmed up. You know.
That's great.
Yeah, but where are you living now, Alex? In Toronto, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it? Are you a hockey fan there?
Yeah, just sort of getting it now that the Jays are gone, getting out of the baseball season into hockey.
Yeah. I understand you're playing golf now.
I got into it last year.
Yeah.
I never thought in 1,000 years I'd ever play golf.
Mhm.
And I just on a whim went out to a driving range, did some balls,
Mhm.
and then got some better clubs. Tried that, and one thing led to another. And I'm right into it. But it's great. It's great to do this on the road. The real killer, the real enemy on the road is boredom,
Mhm.
and that kills 4.5, 5 hours. And you go out, you're outside. You know, just, it's a really nice way to spend
Mhm.
those dead hours.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you sit in your hotel room and wait to go sit in the dressing room, to wait to go sit on a bus.
Yeah.
And it's a one big circle, and you work for 2 hours, and you pack everything into that 2 hours, and
Mhm.
you're around. It drives you crazy.
Mhm. You should come out with Eric and jam with them. In the opening thing. Probably not, but it would be nice to see.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind sitting down with them.
Yeah.
A couple of things.
Yeah. Okay, Alex, it's been a sincere pleasure, and best of luck on the tour. Continued success, and hopefully we could do it again.
Well, thanks for being such a great supporter, Bill.
Hey, I've always been there and always will be.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
I'll see ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.